So, hello and welcome to our webinar today entitled Utility Network Editor, or UNE for short, UNE for ArcGIS, Discover Web-Based Management and Editing Tools for your ArcGIS Utility Network. So I'm delighted to be hosting today's webinar. We have an enormous attendee list, which is great, and also an attendee list from across the globe. So thank you very much for attending, and we're very keen to get started. So before we get started, I'd just like to talk a little bit about some housekeeping activities. The session today is being recorded and we can share the link with you by email as soon as it becomes available. We welcome you to revisit the content yourself or share it with colleagues and contacts as you see fit. Also, we will invite you to comment and question for today's session via Slido. So as you can see on the screen at the moment, there's a QR code. Please scan that on your smartphone or paste the URL into your web browser and join the conversations that we're having in Slido. There's an opportunity for you to ask questions, but there's also a poll there, which would be great for you just to answer, and we can then review that in the Q&A session at the end. So that's all of the housekeeping elements that we've done. I would now like to introduce our panelists. So Emma and Max, if you'd like to just turn on your screen, there we go, just to show you that we're not just AI chatbots, we are actual people. I'm joined here today by Emma, who is our pre-sales technical lead in utilities, and it looks like Max might be having some issues. There we go. Max, I'm very delighted for Max to be joining us from Andel in Denmark, and he's their senior GIS specialist. So for the overview of what we're going to be covering today, I'm going to hand over to Emma, and she's going to walk you through the content for today, and then Max and I will be chipping in later on. So thanks very much, and I think it's worthwhile us turning off our cameras so that we can maximize the screen real estate for the slides and the demonstrations. Over to you, Emma.
Thanks, James. So we're going to talk today about, what even is UNE for ArcGIS. I'm going to do a really quick technical demonstration, talk about some of our customer success stories, and then I'll hand over to Max to talk about what Andel have been up to. So to start with, what is UNE? It's a powerful web editor that optimizes all the advantages of your utility network in a user-friendly interface for simple data capture. Because it's browser-based, that means that there's no need for specialized software installation. It's compatible with all utility network data models, and we're going to see a range of them today, and that provides a lot of flexibility for all different organizations' network configurations. It understands the business rules and the network logic of utility network, and because of that, that means that you've got real-time data validation during data capture, ensuring accurate and reliable data. UNE has been designed as a versatile and customizable application. So as well as empowering users with much more efficient editing capabilities, there are various other tools to start to streamline your workflows. And because it has a user-friendly application builder, that means that tailor-made applications can be created for different user groups. So what I'm going to do is, I do want to focus on the customer stories. So I'm going to really briefly outline some of the key functionality of UNE before we jump out to a short demo. Firstly, network rules. UNE understands the business, logic, and connectivity rules of your utility network. And so we've got in here a network panel, which is allowing you to explore those rules in a list or a graph view. And that really enables users to start to drill down into the connectivity of the network and really understand it. Containment is a term for allowing dense collections of features to be represented by a single feature. So in UNE, contained features are easily turned on and off, along with associations, which enable the modeling of connectivity and structural attachment between non-spatial and non-coincident network features. There's an extensive set of smart editing tools now, and I will show some of these in a bit more detail later, but that allows your users to capture data right the first time. So with things like snapping and merging, different draw modes, COGO tools, and undo button, that's all available in there. Because topology and connectivity rules are adhered to, that means that you've got things like valid connections highlighting or the user getting messages as they work, which really just sort of sees to provide that constant feedback to guide them in their workflow. And you can also configure smart templates, and that allows the user to draw more than one asset at once while maintaining all of that topological connectivity rules. Georeferencing plans has never really been easier. They could be dropped in, rotated, resized, and repositioned directly within the app for the users to use as a reference for new designs, for example. As I'm sure you all know, a trace travels through the network. Depending on its configuration, it's looking for paths of connected features and objects. So in UNE, you can configure a wide range of traces to find those connected assets or find affected customers downstream of an event like a pipe burst or a valve closure. And you can configure reports on top of that of included assets or affected customers, and those can then be exported and used in other systems. Subnetworks define the zones of a network, and you might have different tiers of that depending on your business needs. UNE recognizes those if they're built into a utility network. It can provide an overview of the statistics of each one. And finally, network diagrams. These can be generated or existing ones could be accessed, and they're dynamic. So if you're selecting assets in one or the other, you'll see that selection in each, and you can use that to track activity. And what I kind of hope you can see from those clips actually is how customizable the application is. So it's easily changed to match your organization's themes or workflow. And you could, of course, then have separate applications per use case, per workflow or user group. So we've identified a few user personas for Utility Network Editor. We've got data technicians or network designers. They're responsible for editing and updating the network. And that's who I'll kind of be in my technical demonstration in a moment. But then we also have engineers or surveyors. They're out on site needing to maintain and survey the network. So it's really important that they can quickly locate assets and have a way to make updates to the network as they find them. Operations managers are in charge of day-to-day operations. So it's also really important that they've got an up-to-date view of the network and a process for finding affected customers. And we'll see some workflows for them as well later. And then finally, customer services. They need to resolve customer issues. And to do that, a live status of faults is really helpful for them. And a system where they know that customers can be proactively contacted helps them to provide great customer service. So as I said, I'm just going to jump out to UNE now to show a short editing workflow before we look at some customer successes. So here we are in UNE. We can see we've got a water network in this example in here. And what I want to show is how we can start to use other data layers to start to pull into our network. So we can see we've got our utility network layers in here. But I've also got some additional feature layers. These aren't part of my utility network. They're perhaps layers that a field engineer is redlining into, for example. So if we turn them on, we can see that someone has drawn in here some missing service connections. And it looks like one that needs to be removed as well. So what I want to do is I want to commit this asset to my asset registry. I can see that, excuse me, I can see if I go into the properties here that it is a missing service connection, so I'd like to digitize that. And there are a few different ways to do that, but what I want to show you is how we can really leverage that recognition of the rules in UNE. So this is a list of all my rules. I'm going to select my main pipe here because that's where I know I need to start. And I can filter to say these are the only valid rules for this asset. These are the only things that can connect to this asset. So I'm going to choose joint. I'm going to hit create. And when that happens, you can see I get all the valid connection points highlighted. So that's guiding me, like I say, with my workflow. See I'm snapping. I can zoom in and make sure I'm snapping to the right point on the network. So the next thing I need to draw is a communication pipe. So I'm going to hit create on that one as well. And again, the joints are highlighting. Let's use the follow mode for this one. So this is a bit like tracing in desktop applications. It's following exactly the position of those other features. When I drop a meter on here, I'm just going to do this to show some attribute rules. So it's not all about the topology, it's not all about the drawing. What we're saying is here, you can't draw that meter if you've not filled in these two fields. To complete this service connection, then we'll do a service link, and I'll just change the mode. I won't, I'll just hit create. Then I'll change the mode back to standard. And we can see this time, a quick look at some of those COGO tools. So if I wanted to limit the segment to 15 meters, you can see when I do that, that's not going to draw any further than 15 meters. And if I wanted to, I could do the same for the angle or draw an offset of that line as well. For now, I'll just complete that. So I turn the layer off again. We can see now that we've got that service connection. It matches the other ones. So that's all now in my version of my design. So now let's do it a different way. I've received a plan from a developer. It is some new service connections that need to be designed. So as I said before, I can go ahead and georeference that directly within UNE. So I'll drop that in here. We can see the design there. And in here, using the plans panel, I can resize, move, and sort of scale this drawing to where it needs to be. I'm not going to do that in any real detail, but once it's ready to go, you can hit OK, and that will be saved there for you to then use as a reference layer. So what I'll do this time, instead of using my network rules, I'm just going to use my, let's get rid of that, just going to use my pinned list here. So this is my assets that maybe I use all the time. I can do the same thing again. I can draw a joint and a distribution main down the main road of this new design. And I want to do this to just show that smart template that we mentioned. So this is something that you can configure in the background. And when I go ahead and connect that to my main pipe in 1, 2, 3 clicks, that's going to draw all of those assets for me, the joint, the communication pipe, the meter, and the service link. So we can see that's all happened all at once. And that's a really simple example of a smart template. The other thing I could do here, if we're just picking up on those topology rules as well, if I change my mind on the location of that meter, I can move it, and all of the other things will move with it because of that topological connection. And that undo button there, making sure that if I need to, I can just change my mind again. So the last thing I just want to show in UNE, if I just take this plan out, is I just want to explore that idea of subnetworks a little bit. So we go back to our layer list, we can see in our utility network layers the subnetworks. We talked about these earlier around the zones of your network. So we can see here I've got 4 different DMAs, district metered areas. If I select one, select the right thing, we can see now that we get a subnetwork panel. And this is showing us some information about our subnetwork, where the subnetwork controller is, and some stats. If we take a note of that property count, 182, what I want to do with this, just quick workflow on subnetworks is I want to experiment with moving these properties in the green DMA to the yellow one. And I can do that by editing the valve. So I'll open up this valve. And you'll see the symbology changes when I do that as well. And what I'll do is I'll close this valve down here. Now this, what I'll do now is I'm going to just validate my changes that I've made, and that's going to tell me whether I've made any glaring errors. And of course, how you then go about posting all of that to your default is entirely a separate workflow. But in this example, I'm just going to post it directly. And what I'm going to do now as well is I'm just going to run a tool in the background called Update Subnetwork. And this is going to look for any changes, which much like we've just made. It's going to look for those changes and apply them. And this is something that you would probably have running on a schedule, daily or weekly, whatever fits with your workflow. But I can see for now that it's finished. So if I come back to my default, sorry, I should have done that first. And we can see now that those properties are now on the yellow district metered area. And we can see if we select it again, and we go to our panel, we're on 234. I can't remember exactly what it was, 180 something. So you can see those properties have now moved over to that district metered area. So that's what I wanted to show really in terms of technical demonstration. What I would like to do now is move on and talk about what some of our customers are up to. And hopefully through some of this stuff, you'll see some of the power of what I've just outlined. So the first customer I want to talk about is Southern Water. They provide water services to 2.5 million customers and wastewater services to almost 5 million customers across the south coast of the UK. And like all water companies right now, they're facing a lot of challenges around the climate, their resources and population. And so because of that, they've got a lot of operational and network data that needs to be interrogated by a variety of users, and they need to really start to understand their network. And since their implementation of utility network, Southern Water wanted to make that data available for network tracing during incidents to aid decision making. And the reason that they chose UNE to do this is because it sits in the web, because it can provide instant customizable feedback, and because there's the capability to generate reports. If we take a look at their user story a bit more, we talked about those network engineers earlier. Southern Water's network engineers are wanting to undertake customer impact analysis. And by that, we mean that they want to know who is affected by incidents on the network based on connectivity. So that engineer doesn't necessarily need to understand in any real detail the elements of the network, the connectivity of the assets. They just want to be able to get the answer and know that the business logic has been implemented. So a really important part of the tool is that it's returning valves and other assets that are affected, but it's also taking into account their priority services registered customers and their vulnerable customers so that they can be prioritized. And of course, critically as well, the engineer doesn't need to use lots of different applications. They can just use this one to get the information that they need. So we take a little look at it in action. This is the GeoTrace application for the water network, Southern Water. So the network engineer firstly will perhaps search for the asset ID of the pipe where a burst has been identified, go ahead, zoom to its location, and maybe want to zoom in further to start to visually inspect the vicinity of the burst area. But what we're going to do now is we're going to click on the trace panel and run a trace. So we'll click the start point, place that on the network in the map window. That's where the burst location is. Run the trace. And when the trace is run, the application is going to highlight the section of the network that needs to be isolated, as well as provide a warning if the isolation will involve hydraulically significant mains. So we can see all of that information has popped up for us. The map feedback summary in the top right there, that's displaying counts of specific network assets, as well as key customers, PSR customers, and their priority levels. So we can see we've got a priority 2 and a priority 5 key customer affected by this isolation. We can also start to see things like the pipe length and volume that's also displayed to help with other incident response processes. And as part of the result, we've got some reports available which are containing key information specific to that incident. So this first one, this is showing the valves that I need to close to isolate the portion of the network. I can see those 3 there. I can see their dimensions, their material, which ones are hydraulically significant. We've got the pipe assets as well. And the additional 3 reports underneath these ones, they are providing information on affected customers. So this could include unique property reference numbers, addresses, whether they're key customers or vulnerable customers, as well as all properties taking a water supply that would be affected by the isolation. And these reports, they are fully customizable, and they could include whatever information that you want. And they can, of course, also be printed and exported to CSV if required. I want to now talk about kind of 2 customers in tandem. We've got Volue and Similix. They're both leading technologies or experts for the global utilities sector, helping to build, model, and integrate asset information. And they've both got a grid calculation API, which is a domain-specific need that every electrical utility has within its core processes. And the tool brings those essential calculations to the users who need them. And typically, the process for handling grid connection requests is poorly integrated. So that means that a lot of time is spent on copying and duplicating grid information. So what these 2 are using UNE for is bringing that to even more users in an accessible platform, decreasing the turnaround time for calculation requests, improving the quality of the design process, and providing much more transparency around design decisions. So again, really similar user stories here. We've got designers who receive requests to check electric flow on parts of the network. Maybe there's been a request for a change to the network. Perhaps new homes are going in, or homes requiring an electric vehicle charger. That's going to mean a change in the electric flow. It might be that those designers then need to adjust those designs based on load flow calculations. So rather than make those changes, export that information into another system, the designers want to be able to confirm that the network is topologically correct, that it has the capacity to deliver the service changes, that it's optimized in terms of the needed capacity, and that the design is aligned to design principles. So for both of these user stories, we've got quite powerful results, right? The designer can stay in one accessible, web-based, user-friendly platform where they're already undertaking tasks related to the network to get the calculation that they need. And from there, they can easily tweak the design and rerun the calculations. So I'm going to show both of these tools in action. I'm going to start off with volume. So in this scenario, we're exploring a designer who's had a customer request to install an electric vehicle charger at their property, and they need to run a load flow and current calculation. We'll focus on the customer right in the middle. I don't know how clear that is, but it's number 13 anyway. And to start the calculation, I'm going to select the service leg to the property and choose the calculation I want to run. So this low voltage capacity calculation does include the short circuit as well as the load flow calculation. And when we hit run calculation, what's happening is the volume system is tracing the local network in the background, doing the analysis and returning the results to us. So what you'll see in the map is that the network and service points turn red and green depending on the results. And the panel in UNE provides us a summary of the short circuit and load flow calculations. And included in the result is a list of the energy consumers that have some issues associated with delivery of electricity to those consumers. So in this instance, we've got phase 2 current below the minimum requirement for this piece of network. And we've got another one down here where their voltage drop has dropped below the set threshold for the network as well. So we can see our customer number 13 showing in green, so no issues with their service. We'd likely be okay to add that charger. But some of the other customers in the area, they actually do have an issue with their service. Their current amp voltage drop at the service points is below what's required for this piece of network. So our designer has been able to really quickly assess the suitability of the electric installations for these properties. We now move on to the Simulix example. In this example, I've got a new area of grid design that I want to test. And this one, the calculation works a little bit differently. So this time I'm going to run a configured trace. And to do that, I need to drop my start point on my transformer feature, change the circuit from primary to secondary, and hit run. And this time, the results are displayed as graphics on the map to provide the user with the utilization values and their corresponding colors. So what we can see are the highlighted parts of the network in blue, meaning the design is fine. You know, we have some cables that are underutilized, but none that are over-engineered. Each line has a capacity attribute that specifies the capacity in amps. So what we're seeing is a visualization of the utilization of that capacity as a percentage. So each endpoint or customer also has a value, and this is telling us what the operating percentage is. Most of these properties, the operating capacity has only dropped by 0.1% or so. But let's say we want to assess the impact on the flow of one of our customers installing an electric vehicle charging point again. Let's use the same example. We can go to the properties, have a look at that demand active power. We can change that up to 10,000 to allow for that charging point. And now when we run the trace again, we get some slightly different results. We can now see that the property is operating at 97.7%, and the cables have changed color to indicate that they're at a higher utilization rate. We can take that one step further. We can change the consumption to something even higher. We can use 25,000. And again, we can hit run on the trace again. See that this time the cables are even more colored. We're showing that we're starting to see perhaps some issues in terms of the capacity. So in this case, our designer might need to go ahead and alter some of the aspects of the design. And lastly, I'm just going to increase it to something entirely unrealistic. We'll chuck 35 in there, just so that you can see those cables changing color again. And really, this is just to demonstrate the sort of full range of thresholds that are built into the tool. You can see them all in there. And then lastly, at any stage during my load flow analysis of this grid design, I could make changes to it. So for that rerun there, we were changing the properties of the property, but actually we could change the attributes on the conductors as well. So we could change things like resistance, reactance, and capacity, and then rerun the tool to assess whether those revised design offers any improved or optimal utilization. So you can see those properties there. So that's all from me. So I'm going to now hand back to James, who's just going to talk about the poll before we hear from Andel.
Great, thank you very much, Emma. I hope everyone enjoyed that demonstration. Really well done to Emma. It's never easy doing a demonstration like that. But I think that what we've been able to show, certainly for the electric industry in this example, is that tight integration with organizations' workflows. I'm really excited to be working with Volue and Simulix and understanding how that relationship can develop so that we can make even more seamless workflows for our customers. So for those of you who were able to scan and join us on Slido, thank you very much. The poll is going well. We'll again share those results at the end. But if you haven't had an opportunity to get onto the Slido app, please scan the QR code that is in the top top left-hand corner of the screen, and you can answer the poll and also ask any further questions that you may have. So we're now going to hear from one of our customers, Andel, and they are based in Denmark. And if we move on to the next slide, you'll be able to see that just a little bit of background on Andel before I hand over to Max. They are the largest electricity organization in Denmark, transporting over 40% of electricity in the grid. They service 2.8 million customers, and out of those, 200,000 of those are serviced via offshore wind turbines. They are a large organization with just under 2,400 employees, and they also have a really complicated electricity grid. I mean, 44,000 kilometers. You know, putting that in perspective, if you stretch that out, that would go around the diameter of the Earth more than once. So that is a really significant size of electricity grid. And you can see again that there are they're up to just over 7 million features that they are managing, whether that be the 240-ish primary substations or the 110,000 low voltage feeders. So this is a large scale, really complex grid that requires significant management to be able to maintain correctly. So what Andel have been able to do on their journey towards the utility network is that they've actually migrated 2 legacy GIS into the utility network. They've gone live with UNE for ArcGIS and pushed out their viewer application to over 600 users. What this has allowed them to do is improve the efficiency of their business processes, specifically, and what Max will show you later, is that ability to accelerate that design process by using some of the smart editing templates and really taking what Emma showed us, a simple smart template, and really running with that idea and delivering significant business benefits. And so I think this is a really exciting thing to do. But what they've been able to achieve, and one of their visions, was they wanted all of their organization to access a utility network through a single application. And that's what they created with OneGIS, which is the name of their application they use internally. And what Max is about to show you are really 4 key workflows. So one of those workflows is just being able to actually understand and identify specific assets on the network. So an example could be, I'm a project manager responsible for a maintenance program, and I have to identify a specific asset installed in a specific date, and how I can easily go and self-serve in that instance. Second area that Max is going to show us is a little bit around tracing and how they've interpreted that in their environment. And then also understanding and reviewing existing transformer stations, but then also moving on to easily creating new transformer stations using those smart templates. So I'm now going to hand over to Max, and he's going to take you through the next stage. So Max, over to you. Brilliant. We can see your screen. We can't just hear you at the moment, Max.
Sorry?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, indeed. So over to you, Max.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thank you. I will show you a little about what we're using UNE for here in Andel. UNE is the face of our GIS system for all our end users. So, and I will take a little jump around here and try and be different persons here. And the first one I will try and be is if I work in the maintenance office, and we heard that we have a problem with cabinets of a specific type that is installed before 2015. So I would like to find those cabinets. So I have this search tool here. And the first question is, and it is in Danish, sorry, we have changed the language to Danish, is finding a cabinet, and it's an assembly, and I would like to find the producer. So I click the P and here, and I can say he should be like the same as, and then it asked me, yeah, and what was it as a type here? Was cabinets, and then the cabinet, it should be a triaca cabinet. So I clicked a T, and it will bring me down to the list of cabinets, and here is a triaca cabinet. So I can start the search, and it will return to me and say, sorry, it took a little longer than it normally do, that it have found more than 10,000 results. We have set a limit for that kind of search and say, oh, you cannot search for more than 2,000, and maybe it's something we raise, but for now it is 2,000, and it is to keep the system running smoothly. But I have a detail more I would add, because I will say and then the date, which should be before 2015. So I will find the date of installation, and it will ask me, is it before or after? It's before. And then I can type the date. And let's go and say 1st of January. And now I can run the search, and it will come back to me and say, and it will come back to me and say that there is 20-30 of those kind of cabinets, and I can have a list of it. Sorry, our grid is all running a bit slow today, but now I have made the selection, and I can see here which cabinet is selected. So I will go and send one of our field crew people out in the field and look at those cabinets here, because we obviously have a problem with those. So normally it will be in, we have this system for field crew people where they will be sent out for a job, and it normally wouldn't be through GIS, but in this demonstration I will do that. So I will find the cabinet, in which he should go to. But before he opens the cabinet, he wants to make sure that there's no solar panels connected to it. So we will run a trace, and I will just take the one. You can see we have several different traces, but I will take the one who is connected to, and I will click start here and say run trace, and it will very quickly return to me and say it has selected 155 things here in the grid, but what I'm looking for was there any solar panel, and there wasn't none connected to this cabinet. I can go to the transformer station, say zoom to, and I will zoom a bit more out. I can see I have 5 different feeders from this transformer station, so I can easily run a trace on all of them to make sure that there is no connected solar panel. And you will see, even though I click on all 5, and say run trace, it will go fast, and I found 605 objects here, and I have 2 electric producing equipment. It will be 2 solar panel. I can zoom to the grid, and when I mouse over, I can see where they are placed in the grid. I will jump a bit, and now I will be sitting in our office where we take in new customers, and we have received a request for a large from a large customer. So I will look around the station to make sure that we can or find the nearest place to provide him with power. And I zoom to this transformer station. I will clear those starting points here. And when I select the transformer station here, I would like to know everything about it. And as Emma told, we have a hierarchy here, so I don't have to click on everything to know everything. I can click on the network button here, and I can immediately see that we have a low voltage side and a middle voltage side in this transformer station, and I also have a transformer place. And if I click at the transformer place, I can see it's containing a transformer, and I can say show me the properties for this transformer, and I'm interested in how big is this transformer. So what I can do here to quickly find it, oh sorry, I can say Control F. No. And if I type up here kVA, it will find the place where I can see the kVA for this transformer station. I don't know why it didn't do it here. Just try one more. No, it doesn't like this one. But as you can see here, I have all the properties for this transformer station, and one of them is the size of the transformer station. I don't know why it didn't pop up, but if it did, I try one more time. No, it won't. But I would see that it was a 400 kVA transformer, and it was not big enough for this new customer. So what I could do is I could ask one of my colleagues to create a plan for adding a new transformer station not far from this one here. And for now, I will do that in another app. And I will go and find the transformer station here, because I go to our editor app. The other one was only for viewing. And I will go and I will create a version. It goes rather fast here. Oh. And now I got myself a new version, and I can zoom into the area where I would like to place the new transformer station. I can close this one and say I would like to create here, and I have some smart templates here, and one of them is a new transformer station. So I click on that, and I click where it should be and the direction of it, and nothing happened. Let's see what happened with this version. It seems it opened. It's the nice thing about doing a live demonstration. Not always everything works. But we try again. We are patient people here. It should work. I actually don't know why it doesn't work today. I can't tell you why it doesn't work, but normally it would create a transformer station, and it will have all the hierarchy in it, and it will run. It runs really fast when it do it, but yeah, I have no explanation why it won't work here. Don't
you worry, Max.
Yeah,
I would like to applaud you on attempting to do a live demo in front of nearly 250 odd people.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, it's the single click rather than a double click that I think might be defeating you. But
No, I don't know what. I can double click as much as I want. It won't work right now. I'm sitting right now. I'm sitting on the test system because I wouldn't draw a new transformer station in the production. So but something doesn't work. Sorry for that.
No, don't you worry at all, Max. And thank you so much again for showing us a little bit of the examples of how Andel is using the utility network editor, or UNE, for ArcGIS, and also understanding that the purpose of doing these smart templates is really a cost-saving exercise. So and so not only a cost-saving exercise, a time-saving exercise, whereby normally being able to digitize a substation of that level of complexity, if you're doing it by hand, would take multiple hours. However, by creating the smart template that you're attempting to show, you've been able to reduce down that time significantly to a couple of clicks. So let's see how we progress with finding a little bit of a video later on that can actually show you some of the elements that Max was wanting to see. So where I'd like to go to next is just do a little bit of a recap of the licensing and some next steps. So if we can just move on to one last slide. Perfect. So you may have remembered this slide from the beginning. It was something that Emma showed, and I just wanted to come back to it to really talk about the three main tenets we have built UNE around. So first of all, as a web solution, Emma and Max have shown us how users can view, interrogate, and edit network infrastructure data in the browser. This means users can always access a single source of truth and maintain network connectivity everywhere. Now think about the potential a lightweight application could offer your workforce in providing a simple and secure interface to your utility network. But then think also about your IT organization not having to roll out desktop applications to all users who want to edit your network, and the operational cost savings that this could provide. Secondly, we were able to demonstrate how data capture is simplified, enabling the reduction or even removal of lengthy QA processes. Again, imagine the workflow improvements you can put in place when you are confident that only valid edits can be made to your utility network. And then finally, we showed you how user-friendly UNE is and how it can empower everyone in your organization with access to the utility network, and not just those with specialist GIS knowledge. Now, this is the bit I'm most passionate about, because consider the powerful workflow-orientated web apps that you could deploy to support work of different types of users in your organization, such as field workers connecting new assets to, or project managers tasked with managing a new housing estate. Or UNE opens up an array of opportunities to revolutionize current business processes, empowering users to work more effectively with key, timely data at their fingertips. So, for the eagle-eyed among you, you may have noticed that throughout the webinar, we've been talking about UNE for ArcGIS, rather than the original product name, Utility Network Editor, which many of us already shorten to that three-letter acronym, UNE. Now, this has been a conscious decision, because as you'll have seen from Emma and Max, UNE users are doing far more than editing. Users are editing, exploring, extending, and using UNE as an experience to be able to access the utility network. And by tweaking the name to UNE for ArcGIS, it better reflects the ways in which people are using the software, as well as fitting into the naming convention of our other Esri UK products that are also built on top of the ArcGIS system. So, oh, sorry, I thought there was someone there.
Yeah, James, if you have a minute, I can show you. I restarted the machine. I don't know what happens before.
Oh, well, Max, that would be.
You can see if it fits.
Yeah, that we go. If I just finalize this, you know, let's switch back right now. Let's go back now. So, if we can hand back over to Max, that would be great.
Yeah, can you see my screen now?
I can indeed.
Great. Because I restarted the machine and then immediately it works. And you can see if I say I would like to draw something here, a transformer station, I can pick this smart template and it will ask me how big a transformer station are you trying to create here, and I would say, okay, it shows me fine that I have 2 bays on the MV side, but I would like to have 8 on the low voltage side, and I will go with that, and I say okay here, and you'll see it has created a transformer station, and it went as fast as you couldn't follow it with the eyes. So, and if we zoom in here, you'll see it has exactly the same components as the one we looked at before. So yeah, it was fast, and now I'm ready to go and connect cables and so on to it. Thank you, James.
Max, I admire your tenacity in the face of adversity. So well done in being able to really show some of that value. And I think that what Max was able to demonstrate there is that utilizing smart templates has become a real time saver for Andel, and the way in which that hierarchy and containment can be replicated really quickly in those configurable smart templates is a really powerful way that organizations are able to use UNE for ArcGIS. So I think, yes, just flicking back to the slide, I think please look out over the next 6 months. We'll be taking a phased approach to adopting the new naming convention for UNE. So again, look out for these changes, whether they be on our web pages and the marketing material or the technical documentation, as we highlight the expanding capabilities of UNE for ArcGIS. I'd like to just move on now and talk a little bit about the licensing, because alongside aligning the naming convention of UNE for ArcGIS with the rest of the Esri UK portfolio, we're also adapting our named user model to take advantages of the changes in the underlying ArcGIS named user types that is happening in the the next version 11.3 of Enterprise, which is coming out very shortly. And in this next release, the utility network named user extension is no longer required for users who are not editing the utility network. Now, this is a significant change for us as an industry around the way that this will be able to open up the utility network to other users that don't have to have that named user extension. So as we can see on the slide, currently we have a single named user type, which is the editor on the left-hand side of the screen. What we're going to be doing now is formalizing a lower tier of named user so that organizations can take advantage of the capabilities for viewing, discovering, searching, and tracing on the utility network more easily across the whole of their organization, because of the requirement not to have that utility network named user extension from the next version release of Enterprise. So we're almost coming to the end of our session now. I think a question that we're always asked is, well, how do I find out more? I think the easiest point of contact is to go to your local Esri account manager, who will be able to point you in the right direction. But for whatever reason, if you're not aware of that route, please don't hesitate to contact us via our email that you can see on the screen. And also, again, if you scan the QR code, you can go to our product pages, and there you can also access a trial. Also, sort of on a slight tangent, if you are interested in the concept of rules-based web editing, which we've been able to show in UNE, where we are honoring the rules within the ArcGIS utility network data model, but if you are interested in web editing just using feature services, then I really encourage you to register for the Natural Capital webinar, where you'll be seeing how rules-based web editing technology can help organizations with their sustainability goals and how they can demonstrate their environmental credentials both within their organization but also outside of their organization. So again, I encourage you to attend the next series of webinars. I think that is where we've got to right now. So I am now going to go and have a look at our Slido board to see where we are with not only the polls, but also the questions. So I'm hoping that I'll get a pop-up of, so I can take the screen. Ah, there we go, show my screen. And can you just confirm that you can see my screen there?
Just your browser, not the Slido.
Oh, well, that won't happen. I'll do it that way then. Here we go.
There we go. Yeah.
Thanks very much. Right, so let's go. I think should we start with the Q&A, or why go to the poll first up? So if I just go here, that will help me get there hopefully. Yes. So we've just asked some really simple questions, which is, well, a single question, which is, where are you on your journey to the ArcGIS utility network? Because I think it's really important for people to not feel that they're alone. If we ask this question, even 12 months ago, if you look down on the bottom of the screen, there was a not sure. Well, now everybody is sure, or the vast majority of people are sure that they have a plan to move to the ArcGIS utility. But also, I think what's really interesting here is that 23% of you are looking to be on the utility network within the next 12 months, but also that there's over 10% of you that are already on the ArcGIS utility network. Again, that is a significant change from where we were early on. So if I move to the next, let me see how I go to the questions. Let's have a look through some of these. So, are there any water utilities using UNE to edit their network data on a large scale? That's a really good question. I'm not sure who's asked that question. However, there is currently, if we're looking in the UK, you saw the example of Southern Water, who is doing tracing and view-only applications. My understanding is that they are the closest ones right now to actually going into production with a application for editing their network. So that is my understanding. I don't know whether anyone else on the line has any other insight into that. No? Okay, I will move on then. Hopefully that answers your question. Can you reiterate what web browser-based product this demo is highlighting? I certainly can. I'm assuming it is different from the ArcGIS Solutions Utility Network product line. Absolutely. So really important question to be able to answer is that Esri UK, as well as creates its own products on top of the ArcGIS system. So what you've been seeing today in UNE for ArcGIS is a additional product that sits on top of the ArcGIS system to be able to provide web editing capabilities to the utility network data model. So I hope that that answers your question. It is very definitely an additional product that sits on top of the ArcGIS system. Emma, I think the next question is really for you about where we are with subnetworks, and so go for that one.
So yeah, in my example, I symbolized the subnetworks in my web map. So I just used a field to symbolize the different names of the subnetworks. So it's not done in UNE directly, just done in the web map that UNE is looking at.
Excellent. Thanks very much. Now, I know that we've got some other questions here, but in the interest of time, we are actually currently out of time, right up onto the hour. So we'll answer all of these questions in a follow-up email later. I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you very much to our presenters today, especially Emma and Max, who did a fantastic job with the demonstrations, and especially Max, your courage in the face of adversity was well recognized. Thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed today, and we look forward to hearing from you in the future.